I'm Alyssa Dunn, 26 years old, and for the past 3 years, I've been raising my sister's 4 kids as if they were my own. After my bakery business collapsed and left me with nothing but debt and disappointment, I had no choice but to move into my sister's house to get back on my feet. What I imagined would be a short reset turned into something completely different. Instead of rebuilding my life, I slowly slipped into the role of an unpaid nanny. I cooked their meals, drove the kids everywhere they needed to go, helped with homework, settled arguments, and handled bedtime while my sister worked late shifts and barely appeared long enough to notice how much I was doing. Meanwhile, I tried to hold my own life together by working part-time at a coffee shop and staying up late at night taking online graphic design classes, chasing a dream that seemed to drift further away with every exhausting day. Then one night, my sister walked in with news that dropped like a bomb in the middle of the room. I'm pregnant again. Baby number 5. My stomach twisted the second she said it. I had already sacrificed nearly everything to keep things running here. My savings, my goals, my freedom, my time. And now there would be another baby added to the chaos. I felt something inside me snap. I can't keep doing this. The words burst out before I could stop them, my voice shaking as I stormed toward my room. Her expression hardened instantly, as if I had just betrayed her in the worst possible way. That moment was when I made my decision. I needed to move out and finally start living for myself. But she didn't accept that choice quietly. Her reaction exploded into something far bigger than I expected, and everything quickly spiraled out of control. What followed turned our entire family upside down. If you've ever felt trapped carrying someone else's burdens, share your story in the comments. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss what happens next. Because the way this situation unfolded was something I never could have predicted. Looking back now, every single day in that house felt like fighting a battle that never ended. My mornings always began the same way. The alarm screamed at 5:30 a.m., dragging me out of bed while it was still dark outside. I would stumble into the kitchen, already exhausted, preparing breakfast and trying to get the kids ready for school. The oldest, Logan, who was 15, usually started the day arguing with his sister Ellie, who was 12. That morning, they were fighting over the last Pop-Tart in the cupboard. "You ate mine yesterday," Ellie yelled, slamming the cabinet door so hard it rattled. I stepped in before things escalated, breaking the pastry in half and handing each of them a piece while trying to keep the peace. At the same time, Hunter, who was 9, managed to knock over a glass of orange juice all across the counter, and little Nora, only 6 years old, wrapped her arms around my leg asking if I could braid her hair before school. By the time I finished helping her, my coffee had gone completely cold, but I gulped it down anyway because there was no time to make another cup. Once everyone was dressed and their backpacks were ready, I packed them into the car and began the drive to school. Those rides were always loud and chaotic. Logan blasted music from his phone at full volume while Ellie complained nonstop about her math teacher. Hunter filled the car with random questions about dinosaurs and space facts he had learned at school, and Nora sang along to songs she barely knew the words to, completely off-key, but completely proud of herself. By the time I dropped them off at school, my head already felt like it was pounding, and the day had barely begun. From there, I rushed straight to the coffee shop where I worked a 6-hour shift. My job mostly involved steaming milk, making espresso drinks, and forcing cheerful smiles for customers who were usually too rushed or irritated to return the kindness. "Can you hurry it up?" one man in an expensive suit snapped one morning, as if I wasn't already handling 3 orders at the same time. $15 an hour was what I earned for those shifts, and even that barely covered my phone bill and the gas I used driving the kids everywhere they needed to go. After work, my second shift began. I picked the kids up from school, listened to their stories about the day, helped them with homework at the kitchen table, and started cooking dinner while breaking up yet another argument about whose turn it was to feed the dog. My sister Cheryl worked night shifts at the supermarket alongside her boyfriend Blake, which meant she was either asleep during the day or gone entirely once evening arrived. Most days, I saw her for maybe 10 minutes. She would shuffle through the living room half awake, mumble something like, "Thanks for holding everything together," and then collapse on the couch before leaving again for work. Nighttime was the only part of the day that felt remotely like it belonged to me. After tucking Nora into bed and helping Ellie finish her algebra homework, I would finally open my laptop and log into my graphic design classes. Designing had always been something I loved. Creating logos, experimenting with colors and layouts, imagining the possibility of one day running my own small design studio. But staring at Photoshop tutorials at midnight after a 14-hour day made the dream feel almost impossible. My eyes would burn from exhaustion, and more than once I woke up slumped over the keyboard after falling asleep during a lesson with my laptop battery completely drained. One evening, Ellie wandered quietly into my room while I was working and asked why I always looked so tired. I forced a smile and told her I was just trying to keep up with everything. She wrapped her arms around me in a hug, and for a brief moment I felt something warm in my chest. I was needed, but almost immediately another thought followed. Needed for what exactly? For changing diapers, driving carpools, and solving problems that weren't even mine. Slowly, I started realizing just how much I was carrying on my shoulders. Logan needed rides to soccer practice almost every afternoon. Ellie had a dance recital coming up that required costumes and rehearsals I couldn't miss. Hunter needed help finishing a complicated science project, and Nora's asthma meant regular trips to the pharmacy and doctor appointments. I was even spending my remaining savings, the last $3,000 left from my failed bakery business, on their school supplies, medical bills, and activity fees. Cheryl contributed when she could, but most of her money went toward rent and groceries. Blake, who worked the same shifts as her, never once offered to help financially. "You're so good with the kids," Cheryl would say sometimes, smiling like it was the highest compliment. But the more I heard it, the more it felt like a trap. Because the truth was, I wasn't living my life anymore. I was living hers. One evening, after putting the kids to bed, I called my best friend Tara. I paced the kitchen while the kids watched TV in the next room, trying to explain everything. "I feel like I'm drowning," I admitted. Tara ran her own freelance graphic design business, and she had never been the type to sugarcoat the truth. "You're not their mom, Alyssa," she said bluntly. "You can't keep putting your dreams on pause for someone else's life." Her words hit harder than I expected. I glanced at my laptop sitting on the table with a half-finished logo design still open on the screen. I hadn't submitted a project in weeks. Emails from my professors kept piling up asking about missed deadlines, and I was falling further behind. The kids themselves were never the problem. I loved them deeply. Logan's sarcastic humor always made me laugh. Ellie had shy smiles that appeared whenever she felt proud of something she had done. Hunter's curiosity about the world was endless, and Nora's hugs had brightened even my worst days. They were family to me. But loving them didn't mean I was meant to raise them. Cheryl was their mother, and she was barely present. Blake treated the whole situation like I was the built-in solution to everything. I had even overheard him joking with Cheryl about how well our teamwork worked. But their teamwork meant I handled everything while they stepped away. When I started actually calculating my days, the numbers shocked me. Around 10 hours caring for the kids, 6 hours at work, 3 hours attempting schoolwork. That left maybe 5 hours for sleep on a good night. My dream of becoming a full-time designer and building something meaningful for myself was slowly slipping out of reach. One night, after Nora cried herself to sleep because she couldn't find her favorite stuffed animal, I sat alone at the kitchen table flipping through my sketchbook. Lately, the only things I had drawn were quick stick figure doodles for the kids. The bold design ideas I used to fill those pages with had completely disappeared. I closed the notebook slowly, a tight feeling pressing against my chest. I wasn't just exhausted anymore. I felt like I was fading away. Every day I stayed there raising Cheryl's kids pushed me further away from the person I once wanted to become. I loved them with all my heart, but I couldn't keep sacrificing my entire future. Something needed to change, and soon. About a week later, I was standing in the laundry room folding clothes when Cheryl burst through the front door with a huge grin across her face. It was the first time I had seen her look that excited in months. Blake walked in right behind her holding a pizza box like they were arriving home from a celebration. "We've got news," Cheryl announced excitedly, grabbing my hand and pulling me toward the couch. My jaw tightened, but I forced myself to smile and say, "Wow, congratulations." Inside, though, my mind was spinning. Another baby? I was already stretched to my absolute limit, and they were acting like I should be thrilled. Later that night during dinner, Cheryl revealed what she really meant by sharing the news. "We've been talking," she said casually, while glancing over at Blake, who leaned back in his chair with a smile. "You're amazing with the kids, Alyssa. We really need you to step up even more now. Maybe you should quit the coffee shop and focus on the kids full time." I froze with my fork halfway to my mouth. Quit my job? I repeated slowly. Blake shrugged like it was obvious. We're overwhelmed at the supermarket already. With the baby coming, there's just no way we can manage everything. Then Cheryl added something that made my pulse spike. And since money's tight, we were thinking maybe you could contribute around $300 a month for rent. It's fair since you're living here. $300? I could barely afford my own expenses as it was, and most of my savings had already gone toward helping their kids. I tried to stay calm. I'm already doing everything. School drop-offs, meals, homework, doctor visits. I can't quit my job. Cheryl's eyes narrowed slightly. You live here, Alyssa. You eat our food and use our space. You owe us. Blake chimed in casually. It's just temporary. Once the baby's here, we'll figure things out. Temporary. I had been their safety net for 3 entire years. I pushed my plate away and stood up before my anger spilled out. I need to think about this, I said, walking out of the room. The next morning, I called Tara again while the kids were at school. They want me to quit my job and start paying rent, I said, my voice shaking with frustration. They're acting like I'm their live-in maid. Tara didn't hesitate. Because they are using you, Alyssa. You're not their employee. What about your design classes? What about your future? Her words stung, but they were true. I had spent so long keeping their household afloat that I had completely lost sight of my own goals. After the call ended, I stared at my laptop again. The unfinished logo project still sat there untouched. I was falling behind. And for what? Over the next few days, Cheryl and Blake kept pushing harder. Think about the kids, Cheryl said one morning while handing me a long list of chores that included grocery shopping, pharmacy pickups for Nora's asthma medication, and paying Logan's soccer fees. Blake even suggested that I sell my old bakery equipment to help cover expenses. That was the moment I realized something clearly. They weren't asking for help anymore. They were demanding my life. I began noticing how often they avoided responsibility. Cheryl slept through the kids fighting in the mornings while I settled the arguments. Blake spent evenings relaxing with Cheryl while I cooked dinner and cleaned up afterward. To them, I had become invisible, just a tool that made their lives easier. One evening, Logan found me packing my laptop away after another late-night study session. You okay? He asked quietly, his usual sarcastic tone gone. I hesitated before answering. I'm trying to be. He nodded slowly, like he understood more than I expected. The kids weren't blind. They could see how much I did for them. But Cheryl and Blake acted like it was simply my duty. That night, I went to bed with my thoughts racing. My savings were almost gone. My classes were slipping through my fingers, and the future I had once imagined for myself was fading further away. I couldn't keep living like this. I needed a way out. Not just for me, but also so the kids would understand that I wasn't abandoning them. Slowly, with shaking hands, I opened my laptop and began searching for rental listings online, my fingers trembling as I typed. $300 a month? I'd rather spend it on a place of my own. I wasn't their servant, and I was done letting them treat me like one. The next evening, I was helping Ellie with her history homework when Cheryl stormed into the kitchen, her arms crossed. We need to talk, she snapped, her voice cutting through the quiet. I sat down the textbook, bracing myself. What's up? I asked, keeping my tone even. Cheryl didn't waste time. You're not pulling your weight, Alyssa. I asked you to step up, and you're still working those coffee shop shifts. It's irresponsible. My breath caught. Irresponsible. I'd been running her household for years. I'm doing everything I can, I said, my voice sharp. I cook, clean, drive the kids every day. Cheryl rolled her eyes. That's not enough. With the baby coming, we need you here, not chasing some hobby degree. I stood my chair, scraping the floor. My design classes aren't a hobby. They're my future. Cheryl laughed, a cold, bitter sound. Future. You're living in my house, eating my food. You think you're too good for us now? Her words hit like a slap. I wanted to fire back, but Ellie was watching, her eyes wide. I took a deep breath. I'm not your servant, Cheryl. I've given you 3 years of my life. She stepped closer, her voice low. If you're not all in, maybe you shouldn't be here at all. I froze. Was she kicking me out? Before I could respond, she turned and left, leaving me shaking with anger. I grabbed my phone and called Tara, pacing the backyard. She called me irresponsible, I said, my voice tight. She thinks I owe her my entire life. Tara's voice was calm but firm. Alyssa, you need to set boundaries. You're not her employee or her mom. You deserve your own space, your own goals. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I know, but the kids, they need me. Tara cut me off. They need their mom, not you sacrificing everything. Find a place of your own. You've got savings, right? Her words lit a spark. I'd been so focused on Cheryl's demands, I hadn't thought about what I could do for myself. That night, I opened my laptop and started searching for apartments in Madison. I found a few listings, small studios downtown, around $1,500 a month. My savings, $3,000 for my old bakery, could cover a deposit and first month's rent. I'd need to keep my coffee shop job, maybe pick up extra shifts. I started crunching numbers, my heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. I could make this work. I had to. But the kids' faces kept flashing in my mind. Logan's quiet worry, Ellie's shy hugs, Hunter's endless chatter, Nora's clingy hands. Leaving would hurt them, but staying meant losing myself. The next day, I sat Logan down after school. I'm thinking about moving out, I said, watching his face. He frowned, picking at his hoodie. Because of Mom? He asked. I nodded. I need to live my life too, but I'll still be here for you guys, just differently. He didn't say much, but I could tell he was processing it. I spent the evening mapping out a budget. $1,500 for rent, $500 for utilities and food, $200 for my classes. My coffee shop pay, $15 an hour, 30 hours a week, would just cover it if I cut corners. I'd have to skip new clothes, eating out, anything extra. Cheryl noticed my distance over the next few days. You're acting weird, she said one morning, catching me checking listings on my phone. I didn't look up, just planning, I said, my voice flat. She scoffed. Planning to bail on us? Typical. Her words stung, but I didn't bite back. I was done fighting on her terms. Tara texted me later, checking in. You're doing the right thing, she wrote. Don't let her guilt trip you. I clung to that, knowing I had to break free. I wasn't just leaving a house, I was claiming my life back. By the end of the week, I had a list of apartments to visit and a plan to make it happen, no matter what Cheryl threw at me next. A few days later, I slipped out after dropping the kids at school to visit my first apartment listing in Madison. The studio was small, just a single room with a tiny kitchenette, but it was mine, to imagine a space where I could breathe, work on my designs, be me. The landlord quoted $1,500 a month, plus a deposit. I nodded, clutching my phone where I'd saved screenshots of 3 other listings. My savings, $3,000, could cover the move, but I'd need to stretch every penny. Back at Cheryl's, I kept my plans quiet, dodging her pointed glares. I wasn't ready for another fight, not yet.
Instead, I focused on preparing the kids, starting with Logan. After dinner, I pulled him aside while Ellie helped Hunter with a puzzle. Logan, we need to talk, I said, handing him a notebook. If I move out, you'll need to step up. His eyes flashed with anger. You're leaving us because of Mom, aren't you? He snapped, tossing the notebook on the table. I kept my voice steady. I'm not leaving you. I'm teaching you how to handle things. I showed him how to make a grocery list, plan simple meals like tacos, and check Nora's asthma inhaler. He grumbled but listened, scribbling notes. You're 15, I said. You're smart. You can do this. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Ellie overheard us and cornered me later, her voice small. Are you moving because we're too much? She asked, twisting her hair. My heart sank. No, Ellie, it's not you. I just need my own space. She hugged me, her face buried in my shoulder, and I felt her quiet sobs. I held her tight, promising to stay close. Hunter and Nora were trickier. At 9 and 6, they didn't grasp the full picture. Over breakfast, I explained I might live somewhere else soon. Hunter frowned, stirring his cereal. Who's going to help with my science project? He asked. Nora's lip trembled. Will you still braid my hair? I reassured them I'd visit, but their confused looks lingered. I spent the next few days visiting more apartments. One had a view of a park, another was closer to the coffee shop. I narrowed it down to a studio I could afford, costs in my head. My job brought in about $1,800 a month, enough for rent, utilities, and food if I skipped extras. I'd have to pause my design classes for a month to save cash, but I could pick them up again. Tara called to check in, thrilled I was moving forward. You're taking control, she said. The kids will be okay. They've got you as an example. Her words gave me strength, but the kids' reactions weighed heavy. One evening, I taught Logan how to use the washing machine. Load it like this, I said, showing him how to measure detergent. He rolled his eyes but paid attention. Mom never does this, he muttered. I nodded, keeping quiet. Logan was starting to see Cheryl's absence, and it hurt him more than he let on. Ellie stayed close, helping Nora with bedtime stories, but her eyes were red. Hunter kept asking when I'd visit, and Nora clung to me, whispering, "Don't go far." I felt torn, but I couldn't back down. By the end of the week, I'd scheduled a lease signing for the studio. I packed a small bag, closed my laptop, a few sketches, keeping it hidden in my closet. Cheryl hadn't noticed, too busy with Blake or sleeping off her shifts. I told the kids I'd move soon, but promised to call daily and visit often. Logan's anger softened into a grudging nod. Ellie gave me a drawing of us together, her way of saying she'd miss me. Hunter and Nora still seemed lost, but I hoped they'd understand in time. I wasn't abandoning them, I was showing them how to stand up for yourself. As I finalized my plans, I felt a flicker of hope. I was ready to take this step, even if it meant facing whatever came next alone. The following week, I hauled my last box into my new studio in Madison. It was small, with just a mattress and a desk, but it was my own space, a fresh start. I arranged my laptop and a few sketches, feeling lighter than I had in years. I sent a quick text to Logan, Hunter, and Nora, promising a pizza night soon. Cheryl hadn't spoken to me since I signed the lease, her cold shoulder a relief after months of tension. I thought I'd left the chaos behind, but I underestimated her. 3 days later, my phone rang with an unknown number. "This is Officer Doyle from the Madison Police Department," a steady voice said. My stomach dropped. "We've received a complaint. Can you meet us at your sister's address?" I drove over, my mind racing. When I pulled up, 2 officers stood outside. Officer Doyle, clipboard in hand, and Officer Reed scanning the street. Cheryl was on the porch, her face flushed with anger. "She stole $500 and trashed our stuff," Cheryl shouted, jabbing a finger at me. "The washing machine's broken and the sofa's ripped." I blinked, shocked. "I didn't take anything," I said, my voice firm. "I moved out clean." Officer Doyle raised an eyebrow. "Let's see the damage," he said. Cheryl led us inside, pointing to a sofa with a torn cushion and a washing machine that wouldn't start. "She did this before she left," Cheryl insisted. I shook my head. "I haven't touched your things. I've been at my place all week." Officer Reed examined the sofa, noting old stains beneath the tear. "This doesn't look recent," he said. He checked the washing machine, finding a loose wire. "Could be wear and tear," he added. I turned to Cheryl. "You know I didn't steal anything. Search my car, my apartment. Go ahead." Officer Doyle looked at Cheryl. "You're claiming theft and vandalism. Got any proof?" Cheryl hesitated, her eyes darting. "The money was in my dresser," she muttered. She knew where it was. Before I could respond, Logan stepped into the room, his face tense. "I need to talk," he said, glancing at the officers. My heart pounded. What was he up to? Logan faced Officer Doyle. "Mom's making this up. That sofa's been torn for months. Hunter spilled juice on it last summer. The washing machine broke weeks ago because Mom overloaded it. And the money? She spent it on groceries and never told anyone." Cheryl's eyes widened. "Logan, that's enough," she snapped, but her voice shook. Logan didn't back down.
"Alyssa's been more of a parent than you. She paid for our school stuff, drove us everywhere, while you and Blake were barely here." I stared at him, my chest tight. Officer Reed jotted notes, his expression neutral. "So no theft or recent damage?" he asked Logan. "None," Logan said, crossing his arms. "Mom's just mad Alyssa moved out." Cheryl's face reddened, but she stayed silent. Officer Doyle sighed. "Ma'am, false reports are a problem. We'll let this slide, but don't call us unless it's real." The officers nodded to me and left. I pulled Logan aside in the driveway. "You didn't need to do that," I said, my voice soft. He shrugged, kicking a pebble. "You don't deserve this. You've always been there for us." I hugged him, fighting tears. Back at my studio, I called Tara, still rattled. "Cheryl tried to pin theft and vandalism on me," I said, pacing. "Logan set them straight, but I'm done with her games." Tara's voice was sharp. "She's lashing out because she's losing control. Keep your distance." I agreed, staring at my bare apartment. It wasn't much, but it was mine, free from Cheryl's lies. That evening, I texted Ellie, checking in. Ellie sent a photo of her latest drawing. Hunter asked about visiting, and Nora begged for a story over the phone. I promised to see them soon, but Cheryl's accusations changed everything. Logan's words hit hard. She and Blake were barely there. The kids deserved better, and I couldn't keep shielding Cheryl's failures. I sat at my desk, sketching a new logo, my hands steady for the first time in months. Cheryl could try to sabotage me, but I was building something new, and no one could take that away. 2 weeks later, my phone lit up with a call from Logan. His voice was shaky. "Mom's in the hospital. Something about her pregnancy. The kids are freaking out." I froze, my coffee mug halfway to my lips. Despite everything, Cheryl's accusations, her lies, I thought of Ellie's tearful hugs, Nora's braids, Hunter's chatter. They didn't deserve this. I drove to the hospital, my mind racing. A doctor, Dr. Patel, met me in the waiting area. "Your sister has placenta previa," she explained. "She needs bed rest, possibly until delivery." I nodded, my chest tight. 3 months, that's what she'd need. I found Cheryl in her room, pale and quiet, a stark contrast to her usual fire. "The kids need you," she said, barely meeting my eyes. I wanted to walk away, but Logan's call echoed in my head. I'll help, I said, my voice steady, but only for the kids and on my terms. Cheryl frowned, but I didn't waver. I keep my job, my apartment, and I'm not paying you a dime. I'll stay for 3 months, max, to get the kids through this. She nodded, too tired to argue. I wasn't here for her. I was here for Logan, Ellie, Hunter, and Nora. Back at the house, the kids were a mess. Ellie clung to me, whispering, "Is Mom okay?" I hugged her, promising Dr. Patel was taking care of her. Hunter kept asking why Blake wasn't home, and Nora refused to sleep without me nearby. Logan tried to hold it together, but his clenched fists betrayed his worry. The house felt like a storm had hit, dishes piled in the sink, laundry overflowing, homework scattered. Blake was nowhere to be seen, his work shifts at the supermarket stretching longer than usual. When I finally saw him, he barely spoke, grabbing a beer and disappearing to the garage. "He's been like this since Mom got sick," Logan muttered. I took charge, but not like before. I showed Logan how to split chores with Ellie. Dishes for her, laundry for him. "You're the team now," I told them. Hunter and Nora got simpler tasks like tidying their rooms. I stuck to my conditions, driving over after my coffee shop shifts to cook dinner and check homework. I refused to sleep over, heading back to my studio each night. One evening, Ellie asked, "Why can't you stay?" I knelt beside her. "I'm here for you, but I need my own place." She nodded, but her eyes were sad. Blake's distance made things worse. He'd come home late, barely acknowledging the kids. One night I found Nora crying because he'd forgotten her school play. "He said he'd be there," she sobbed. I hugged her, my anger at Blake simmering. Logan overheard and scoffed. "He's checked out, always has been." I didn't argue. Logan was right. The family was unraveling, and I couldn't fix it, not fully. I focused on keeping the kids stable, making sure they ate, slept, and felt safe. Tara checked in one afternoon while I was helping Hunter with math. "You're doing too much again," she warned over the phone. "Don't let them pull you back in." I sighed. "It's just 3 months for the kids. I've got boundaries this time." Tara wasn't convinced. "Watch out for Cheryl. She'll lean on you when she's out." I knew she was right, but the kids' faces kept me going. I wasn't their mom, but I couldn't let them fall apart. By the second month, I'd settled into a routine. Work, help the kids, back to my studio. Cheryl called sometimes, asking for updates, but I kept it short.
Blake's absence grew heavier. He'd mumble excuses about overtime, but never pitched in. Logan stepped up, handling grocery runs and calming Nora's nightmares, but I saw the strain in his eyes. One night he admitted, "I'm scared for Mom, but I'm mad too. She's never here, even when she's not sick." I nodded, my heart aching for him. I couldn't stay forever, but for now, I'd hold things together. As I drove home, my sketches waiting on my desk, I felt a quiet resolve. I was helping, but I wouldn't lose myself again. 3 months later, Cheryl was discharged from the hospital, her newborn son in her arms. I'd kept my promise, helping the kids through her bed rest, but I was done. I met her at the house one last time, my resolve firm. "I'm out," I said, standing in the kitchen. "I love the kids, but I can't be part of this anymore." Cheryl's eyes narrowed. "You're abandoning us again," she snapped. I shook my head. "I've given enough. You're their mom. Step up." She didn't respond, just turned away. That was it. I walked out, cutting the cord for good. I couldn't leave the kids hanging, though. Logan, Ellie, Hunter, and Nora deserved better than their parents' mess. I called Tara, who lived closer to them. "Can you be their lifeline?" I asked. She agreed without hesitation. I started sending her $50 a month from my coffee shop paycheck to cover school supplies or snacks for the kids. Tara set up video calls twice a week, and I'd guide Logan through algebra or help Ellie with essay outlines. Hunter loved showing me his science projects, and Nora would chatter about her drawings. It wasn't the same as being there, but it kept us connected without Cheryl's chaos pulling me back. Word got back through Tara that Cheryl's life was falling apart. Her job at the call center let her go, too many missed shifts during her recovery. Blake packed a bag one night and left, no explanation, just gone. Logan told Tara their neighbors stopped coming by, tired of Cheryl's excuses and drama. The kids were struggling, but I couldn't fix their parents. I focused on what I could do, sending a little money, checking in through Tara, encouraging Logan to keep the younger ones on track. It hurt to hear Ellie's voice crack during our calls, but I knew staying away from Cheryl was the only way to protect myself. Meanwhile, I threw myself into freelancing. I'd been taking design classes online, and a classmate connected me with a small business needing a logo. That job led to another, then a website redesign for a local cafe. By the end of the month, I had 3 steady clients, enough to quit the coffee shop. I spent my days sketching, tweaking layouts, and pitching ideas. My tiny studio now lined with mood boards and color swatches. For the first time, I felt like I was building something real, something mine. A client paid me $500 for a branding package, and I nearly cried. It was more than I'd made in a week at the coffee shop. Tara kept me updated on the kids, but she also warned me about Cheryl. "She's been asking about you," Tara said during one call. "Says you owe her for everything she did." I laughed bitterly. She can't guilt me anymore. I'd learned my lesson after her stunt with the police. I told Tara to keep my number private and only pass on messages from the kids. Logan texted me one night saying Cheryl was struggling to pay bills, and I sent Tara an extra $20 for groceries, but I didn't reach out to Cheryl. She'd made her choices. The kids were my focus, even from a distance. I mailed Ellie a sketchbook for her birthday, and she sent me a drawing of us together labeled Best Aunt. Hunter called to tell me he won a science fair, and I cheered him on through the screen. Nora asked for stories over the phone, her voice brighter when I made up silly endings. Logan was quieter, carrying too much for a 15-year-old. "Mom's not trying," he admitted once. I told him to focus on school and promised I'd always be there, just not in Cheryl's house. As my freelance work grew, I landed a contract with a Madison startup, designing their entire marketing campaign. It was grueling, late nights, endless revisions, but it paid enough to cover my rent and save a little. I wasn't rich, but I was free. Cheryl's world was crumbling, and part of me felt the weight of her downfall, but I couldn't carry her anymore. The kids had Tara, and they had me in the way that mattered. I looked at my latest design, glowing on my laptop screen, and felt a surge of pride. I'd built this life from nothing, and no one could take it.